Most men try to win women with gifts, looks, or charm, and that's exactly why they're forgotten. They're running a race they can never win, trying to be the most charming, the most generous, the most accommodating. They're performers on a stage, desperate for applause. But the applause always fades, the spotlight moves on, and they're left standing in the dark, wondering why they weren't enough. I've seen it happen. A friend of mine, a genuinely good guy, spent months trying to impress a woman. He'd buy her expensive dinners, listen to all her problems, and be available at a moment's notice. He thought he was building a connection. He thought he was showing her his value. But all he was doing was becoming a predictable, easy-to-read character. He was a book she'd already finished. And what happens when you finish a book? You put it back on the shelf, and you don't think about it again. But Machiavelli, the master of power, saw deeper. He knew something darker, something most men never understand. The goal isn't to be liked, it's to be unforgettable. And you don't become unforgettable by pleasing her. You become unforgettable by controlling what she feels when you're gone. This isn't about manipulation in the way you might think. It's about a cold, hard psychological truth. You're not trying to be her best friend. You're not trying to be her savior. You're trying to be the man she can't explain, the one who occupies her thoughts, the one who feels like a puzzle she can't solve. I was once in a relationship where I thought being the good guy was the answer. I bent over backward. I compromised my own needs. I made myself completely available. I thought I was being a great partner. And for a while, it worked. She loved the attention, the support, the fact that I was always there. But after a while, I could feel it. The subtle shift, the way she took me for granted, the way my presence became background noise. My love, which I thought was my greatest strength, had become my greatest weakness. It was freely given, and because it cost her nothing, it was valued at nothing. It wasn't until I started pulling back, setting boundaries, and becoming less available that her interest and her respect returned with a vengeance. It was a terrifying lesson, but an unforgettable one. In this video, you'll learn 9 dark psychological frameworks inspired by Machiavelli. These aren't tricks. They're not about playing games in the way that makes you feel cheap or dishonest. They are about understanding the fundamental laws of human psychology. You'll learn how to trigger obsession without saying a word of flattery, without chasing, without performing, and without begging for love. This is about building a presence so powerful that it becomes an emotional anchor in her life. This is a deep dive. It's uncomfortable. It's not what you've been told. It's a complete paradigm shift. Most men are playing checkers, trying to be the most charming piece on the board. We're going to teach you to play chess, to think several moves ahead, to control the board, not with your charm, but with your silence, your absence, and your standards. Watch closely, because once you see how this works, you'll never play the game like an average man again. You'll stop trying to be the man she loves and start becoming the man she fears losing. That is where real power lies. They say the greatest illusion in life is the one we create for ourselves. We wrap ourselves in a narrative of goodness, kindness, and hard work, believing that these qualities are our key to a happy life. We tell ourselves that if we're just good enough, if we're just honest enough, if we just try hard enough, the world will reward us. And that's exactly where most men get lost. They approach a woman with this mindset, offering up their kindness like a shield, their honesty like a trophy, and their hard work like a resume. They want to be liked. They want to be chosen for their pure, noble intentions. But I've seen it time and time again. I've watched as good men, genuinely good men, are pushed aside. And the question that keeps coming back, the one that makes their chest tighten and their mind race, is why? Why isn't my goodness enough? Why do women go for the man who seems to care less, who doesn't even try to please them? It's a terrifying question because it dismantles the very foundation of what we've been taught since childhood. The truth is, women don't fall for a man's resume. They fall for his gravity. They don't want a man who needs their approval to feel complete. They're drawn to the man who makes them feel something they can't explain. Something deep, something primal. The man who doesn't beg for their attention, but commands it with his presence. Think about the men in your life you respect the most. They're not the ones who try to impress you. They're the ones who are so comfortable in their own skin, so certain of their own value, that they don't need to perform. They don't need to tell you they're a good man, because their actions, their stillness, their boundaries scream it for them. That's the kind of man we're talking about here. Not a man who is cruel, not a man who is a villain, but a man who has such a profound self-respect that it creates a magnetic field around him. We're going to dive into the core of this. We're going to explore the psychology of attraction, not from the perspective of what you can give, but from the perspective of what you can withhold. Because true power isn't in giving more, it's in being willing to give nothing when your values are crossed. It's in understanding that a woman's attraction doesn't come from your efforts to win her over, but from her subconscious, deep-seated desire to be around a man who doesn't need her. It's a game of psychological chess, and for too long, men have been playing checkers, trying to make all the right moves while she's thinking 3 steps ahead. This isn't about being a bad person. This isn't about hurting anyone. It's about recognizing the psychological truths that govern human relationships. It's about becoming a man who is so grounded in his own power, so secure in his own worth, that he doesn't need to chase, to perform, or to beg for love. He simply exists, and his existence, his stillness, is a force of attraction in itself. You're about to learn how to become that man. The man she can't explain, but also can't stop thinking about. The power of fear over love. It sounds cruel, doesn't it? Like something only a tyrant or a villain would believe. But I want you to set aside your immediate emotional reaction. I want you to look at the world as it is, not as you wish it were. Look at what people actually do, not what they say. Watch how women behave around different men. And suddenly, that sentence, "It is much safer to be feared than loved," begins to make a brutal, undeniable kind of sense. Think about love. It's warm. It's soft. It's the emotion we all crave. We're taught that love is the end goal, the prize you win. But when love is always there, always given, always soft, it loses its weight. It becomes a comfort, yes, but also a constant. And human beings, we are wired to take constant things for granted. The air you breathe, the ground you walk on, the gentle affection of a man who never challenges you. It becomes background noise. It's safe, yes, but it's also forgettable. This is the trap most men fall into. They believe that if they just give more, show more, open up more, she'll value it more. They think that love is a currency they can trade for affection and respect. But what happens? She stops feeling it. She stops seeing the effort. Because what is freely given, without challenge or the possibility of loss, holds no power. It's a sad, cold reality, but it's a reality nonetheless. She loves you, sure, but she doesn't respect you. She loves you like a comfortable chair, and you can't build a life on that. Now, let's talk about fear, and let's be very, very clear. This is not the kind of fear that hurts. We're not talking about yelling, or control, or intimidation, or violence. Those are the desperate acts of a weak man trying to look strong, and a woman can smell that weakness a mile away. Real fear, the kind Machiavelli was talking about, is when a man has boundaries so firm that she feels them without him saying a single word. He doesn't need to raise his voice. He doesn't need to argue. He doesn't need to explain his worth. He simply moves away. He creates a stillness, a void, and that void, that silence, that absence. It teaches her what words never could. This man doesn't chase. He doesn't apologize for being hurt. He doesn't beg for her to stay. He simply lets her feel the absence. And that absence hits harder than any emotional outburst. Because the moment she realizes he's serious, the moment she knows he won't break his own rules just to keep her, the game changes. She knows that if she disrespects him, she loses him. And that's when attraction becomes obsession, not because he gave her more, but because he was willing to give nothing when his values were crossed. That is fear. Not the fear of a man, but the fear of losing a man she can't control. And here's the psychological secret that will change everything you think you know about women. Most women aren't obsessed with being loved. They're obsessed with the man who doesn't need their love to feel complete. That's why women chase the man who walks away. That's why they respect the one who doesn't fold. That's why they keep thinking about the man who never begged. He wasn't mean. He wasn't cruel. He was just unshakable. He had something 99% of men don't. Standards that weren't for sale. So, when Machiavelli said it is safer to be feared than loved, he wasn't rejecting love. He was teaching you that respect must come first. He was showing you that without the fear of loss, love becomes lazy and complacent, and that the deepest desire comes not from what you give, but from what you are willing to take away if she doesn't value it. So remember this: she may love you. She may enjoy your company. But if she doesn't fear losing you, you're replaceable. But if she knows deep down that you won't stay where you aren't respected, you'll never have to ask for her attention again, because she'll be the one fighting to earn yours. That's not cruelty. That's psychological gravity. That's the dark attraction of a man who knows his worth. Master the image. Machiavelli once said something brutally simple and terrifyingly true. It is not necessary to be good. It is necessary to appear good. This one sentence is a hammer blow to the lie most men live under. We're taught from childhood that if you're kind, loyal, hardworking, and honest, people will respect you. Women will desire you. The world will reward you. But it won't. Not on its own. Because the world doesn't see your truth. It sees your presentation. You can be the most loyal man on the planet. You can be intelligent, have deep values, and noble intent. But if you show up with weak posture, an uncertain tone, and anxious energy, no one will feel your worth, especially not a woman. Why? Because female attraction doesn't begin with facts. It begins with perception. She's not asking herself, what are his values? She's asking, what do I feel when I'm around him? She's not analyzing your logic. She's scanning your energy, how you walk, how you speak, how you react when tested. And that's where image becomes power. This isn't about lying. This isn't about creating a fake persona. That's a house of cards that will collapse at the first gust of wind. This is about framing. It's about recognizing that humans don't respond to truth. They respond to what feels true. And if you don't control how you're seen, someone else, her emotions, her biases, her past, will define you for her. Think of it this way. You're a brilliant, rare jewel, but if you're covered in mud, no one will know your value. The mud isn't you, but it's what they see. Your image is the polishing cloth. You're not changing the jewel. You're just revealing its true, brilliant self. This means when you feel unsure, you stand like a man who is certain. When you feel anger, you speak like a man who controls fire. When you want to chase her, you do nothing. You let her come toward you. Because in stillness is power. In mystery is attraction. Let me tell you about a guy I knew, a friend named Mike. Mike was the definition of the good guy who finished last. He was smart, funny, and incredibly kind. He'd always be there for the women in his life, ready to help, ready to listen. But he had no presence. He'd slouch, he'd stammer, he'd over-explain himself. He was a human billboard that read, "Please like me." He thought by being a good person, women would just see his worth. They didn't. They saw his anxiety, his low self-esteem, his lack of presence. They saw a man who needed them to feel whole. One day, I sat him down and told him to stop trying to be liked. I told him to start focusing on being seen as a man of substance. It wasn't about faking it. It was about embodying the man he already was inside. I told him to stand up straight, to speak with a calm, deliberate tone, to stop over-explaining and start creating mystery. I told him to let her see 80% of who he was and leave the rest behind his eyes, to let her imagination fill in the gaps, because what she creates in her mind will often be far more powerful than anything you can say. This is how obsession begins, not with oversharing, but with silence, not with convincing, but with presence. So stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to be understood. Start shaping your image, not as a lie, but as a truthful and powerful reflection of the man you truly are. Because in a world ruled by perception, image is not just everything. It's the game. Be the lion and the fox. Every woman will test you. She may not even know she's doing it. It's an unconscious primal instinct to see if you are who you appear to be. She'll shift her tone. She'll pull away. She'll go cold, then warm, then cold again. She'll say one thing and do another. She'll throw out a playful jab that's laced with a subtle challenge. And all of it, is to see one thing. Do you collapse or do you hold? Most men don't even know they're being tested. They think she's confused or emotional. So, they rush to fix it. They explain. They apologize. They try to mend the situation with words, with logic, with pleas. And just like that, they lose the game. They reveal themselves to be a man who can be swayed, a man whose frame can be broken, a man who will compromise his own standards in the face of her emotional chaos. They show her, without saying a word, that they can be controlled. But Machiavelli, centuries ago, gave the blueprint. A powerful man must be both a lion and a fox. The lion is power. He doesn't chase. He doesn't explain. He creates boundaries with his silence. He commands the room without raising his voice. He is the immovable object. His presence is a shield that says, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." He knows his worth so completely that he doesn't have to prove it. The fox is intelligence. He doesn't react to bait. He doesn't reveal his hand. He listens, he observes, and he strikes when the moment is clean and precise. He understands the game being played. He sees the subtle tests and the emotional traps. He doesn't get pulled into her chaos. He watches it. He waits for the opportune moment to make a move that shifts the entire dynamic. And here's the trap most men fall into. If you're only the lion, strong, direct, forceful, she'll find a way to provoke you. And when you explode in anger or frustration, She sees you as unstable. Your power becomes noise. You're just another loud, insecure man trying to intimidate. And your roar, once a sign of strength, becomes a sign of weakness. If you're only the fox, clever, calm, calculating, she'll feel your charm, but not your spine. She'll enjoy your wit and your intelligence, but she won't feel that primal pull of respect. She'll see you as a smooth operator, a fun companion, but without that fire, she won't trust you to lead. She won't feel safe with you, and she won't respect you in the moments that truly matter. But if you are both, if she sees the strength in your stillness and the calculation in your silence, she won't know how to predict you. She won't know which part of you is going to emerge. That uncertainty, that tension, that's what hooks her deeper than words ever could. She'll be drawn to your unpredictability, to the sense that you are an enigma she can't quite solve. So, how do you embody both? When she's emotional, be the fox. Watch, don't react. Let her tests crash against your calm. Don't get pulled into an argument. Just listen with a quiet intensity. When she crosses a line, when she disrespects you, when she challenges your boundaries, be the lion. Not with anger, not with threats, but with presence. A stillness that says, "This is my boundary, and I won't move." That's the man she respects. Not because you yell, but because you don't flinch. Not because you explain, but because you don't need to. She won't understand how to play you. Because you don't play. You watch. You wait. You act when it matters. That's power. Not noise, not charm, but the fusion of strength and silence. The lion protects your respect. The fox protects your mind. And together, they make you unforgettable. Divide her world. Machiavelli's oldest law of power was simple: divide and conquer. But this isn't just for empires. It works quietly inside the human mind, and it is a terrifyingly effective tool. You don't control a woman by force. You don't fight her beliefs head on. You seed doubt and let her do the rest. Think about a woman who is completely certain. She knows what she wants. She feels grounded, safe. Her mind is a fortress of her own making, built on her past experiences and her emotional biases. To her, everything makes sense. Your goal isn't to tear down that fortress. That's a fool's errand. Your goal is to make her question the foundations of it. Just a little. Just one small, unexpected shift. Not an argument, but a suggestion. Let's imagine a scenario. She's telling you about an ex, a toxic man, who was too jealous. She says, "I just hate jealous men. I can't be with someone like that." Most men would nod along, rushing to agree, saying something like, "Oh, I'm not like that at all. I'm so relaxed and trusting." They think they're earning points. They're not. They're just confirming what she already believes. They're making themselves predictable. A Machiavellian man would do something different. He'd let her finish, then smile, calm, confident, playful, and he'd say, "That's what you think." Now, that one sentence. It's a psychological landmine. It's not an attack. It's not a debate. It's just a small, harmless question mark dropped into the center of her certainty. And her mind starts spinning. What did he mean by that? Do I really believe that? Why did that simple sentence stick in my head? That's how division begins. Not between you and her, but inside her. When part of her still agrees with herself, but another part, the part you've just activated, starts to wonder. She loses control of the narrative, and you're the one who planted it. This isn't about control through pressure. It's control through psychological tension. Most men avoid this. They rush to agree with her, to be liked. They make her feel safe, validated, certain. But certainty doesn't attract. Tension does. Because when she's torn, when she feels curious, conflicted, unsure, her emotions stay open. And in that openness, your influence grows. I saw this play out with a friend who had been on a few dates with a woman who was very vocal about her independence. She'd constantly talk about how she didn't need a man, how she was her own person, how she valued her space above all else. Most men would have praised her for it, told her how strong she was. My friend, instead, would simply listen, and then, at the end of a date, he'd say something like, "I admire your need for control." It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't an insult. It was an observation, and it would leave her speechless. He didn't argue with her. He didn't try to change her mind. He just tapped her belief with a quiet truth. And then, he let silence do the work. She started to argue with herself. Is it really about independence, or is it about control? Is there a difference? Without realizing it, my friend had entered her mind. Not as a threat, but as a mystery. That's Machiavellian seduction. Not dominance, not drama. Surgical precision. Power that doesn't feel like power, because it feels like curiosity. And curiosity, that's the hook that keeps her circling you, even when you say nothing at all. Reward in doses. Punish all at once. Machiavelli once said, "Injuries must be inflicted all at once, but benefits should be given little by little." This isn't just political strategy. It's emotional control, and it works in modern relationships better than most men realize. Here's the truth. When someone crosses your boundary, you don't react emotionally. You don't argue. You don't explain. You act. One clean, cold move. Silence. Distance. Withdrawal. There is no shouting, no teaching moment, no guilt tripping, just the sudden stark loss of your presence. And that absence, it stings. Why? Because there's nothing to push against. She's left alone with her own thoughts and her own guilt. Her brain starts spinning, trying to fill the void. What did I do wrong? Why did he stop talking? Is he gone for good? And that silence becomes a mirror. She's not reacting to your anger. She's reacting to her own actions, seeing their consequences for the first time. Now, on the other side of that, comes the reward, but not all at once. When she's loyal, when she's warm, when she shows respect, you give her something small, rare, and earned. A look, a subtle smile, a compliment that feels real because it's not freely given. Then nothing. You don't shower her with love. You don't make her feel she has you in a cage. You train her nervous system just like a casino. She doesn't know when the next reward is coming. So, she keeps playing. This is what makes it addictive. Not the size of the reward, but the timing. Too many men reverse the formula. They punish too often. They get angry. They argue. They get needy. They reward too quickly. They flood her with affection, with gifts, with validation, making themselves predictable and easy to take for granted. They become emotional, unstable, and worst of all, predictable. But you do something different. You punish once. No warning, no drama, just a line crossed and the sudden, unyielding silence. And when she's back in your frame, you reward her slowly, with just enough to keep her hungry, to keep her in the chase. This is not cruelty. This is discipline. It's Machiavellian psychology, wrapped in calm control, because pain given fast is remembered, and pleasure given slow is craved. Now you're not just a man. You're a system she can't stop running. Think about the most respected leaders throughout history. They weren't the ones who gave away everything to be loved. They were the ones who were firm in their principles, who acted swiftly and decisively when their boundaries were crossed, and who gave out praise and favor sparingly, making it mean something when it was finally received. This is the same principle. You are not a vending machine. You are a sovereign entity, and your presence, your affection, your time, they are a privilege, not a right. So the next time a boundary is crossed, don't yell. Don't explain. Don't beg. Just vanish and let her feel the profound, terrifying, and ultimately powerful weight of your absence. That is the moment of truth. That's when she decides if she truly respects you or if she just likes what you give. And her answer will define the entire future of your relationship, be her turning point. If you want to live in her mind forever, don't just be a man she liked. Be the moment her world changed. Don't be the boyfriend. Don't be the fling. Be the shift in her story. The truth is, women don't remember all the men they date. They remember the men who triggered something deep inside them, something emotional, something they didn't even know was waiting to be seen. This isn't about gifts, looks, or charm. It's about impact. It's about saying what others are too afraid to say. It's about looking her in the eye and naming what she hides. Not to shame her, not to tear her down, but to show her you see her. Not just her surface, not just her beauty, but her truth. And when you do that, without seeking praise, without trying to impress, you don't just enter her life, you restructure it. I think back to a moment that changed a relationship for me. I was with a woman who was constantly surrounded by people who told her what she wanted to hear. They validated her insecurities. They praised her every move. They treated her like a fragile object. And she was miserable. One day she was complaining about her life, about feeling stuck. And I just looked at her and said, "You're not a victim. You're a sculptor who won't pick up the clay." The room went silent. She flinched. It wasn't what she expected. It wasn't a sympathetic ear. It was a cold, hard truth. But in that moment, something shifted. She couldn't forget that line. It haunted her. It made her angry at first. Then, it made her think. And finally, it made her change. I didn't save her. I just gave her a mirror she couldn't break. And from that day on, I wasn't just another man in her life. I was the man who had the courage to tell her the truth she desperately needed to hear. Freud once said, "Emotional memory shapes desire." People crave what marks them emotionally. And Machiavelli, he understood that the man who controls the story controls the mind. So, you control it not by forcing it, but by becoming the chapter she can't rewrite. Maybe you were the first man who didn't chase her, the first one who set a standard and actually walked away when it was crossed. Maybe you challenged her beliefs, made her pause, made her question who she thought she was, and then you left. Not bitter, not begging, just gone, but not really. Because in her mind, you stayed. You became the man tied to her transformation. And that kind of presence, it doesn't fade with time. She might move on. She might laugh. She might even forget your name out loud. But she'll never forget the version of herself that was born after you. Because in her secret world, behind every smile, there's a memory that whispers, "He changed me." And once you become the turning point in a woman's story, you no longer have to fight for space in her heart. You already own it. Let's be clear. These aren't just lines. They're not tricks. They're not pickup tactics. They are psychological structures built to press deep, hidden switches in the female mind. Switches that shift her from logic to obsession, from control to craving. Most men try to get her attention. They joke. They chase. They perform. But what you're building here is presence. The kind of presence that doesn't make her laugh. It makes her pause, think, and feel, even when she doesn't want to. You're not here to entertain her. You're not here to prove anything. You're not her fan, her follower, or her therapist. You are the man who shifts her center of gravity. Not by shouting, not by pleasing, but by saying the one thing that cuts through her defenses and then leaving it there. You create silence. You create mystery. You create space in her mind that she can't fill with anyone else. This is not softness. This is precision. And most men will never understand it because they're too addicted to approval to see the structure behind emotion. But if something inside you shifted while watching this, if a deeper instinct in you woke up, then this isn't just a video. This is a signal that you're done playing the game like everyone else, that you're done begging for love, affection, or attention, that you're ready to build gravity instead of chasing validation. If you're ready to master attraction, power, and emotional dominance in silence, subscribe now to the Stoic philosophy and stay tuned, because what's coming next won't just show you how to win her. It will show you how to become the kind of man who doesn't need to.
Thank you for watching this video here on the Stoic philosophy. If you found value in this, I invite you to explore more videos on the channel. There's so much more wisdom to uncover. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.